Welcome back to the second part of the Prediabetes Nutrition Education Seminar. So, we were talking about fats and how to cut them from the diet in healthy ways. And now we're going to look at the nutrition facts label once again to see where you can look for fat. You would, again, always start at the serving size. Here, 1 tablespoon of butter has 100 calories and 11 grams of fat, 7 of which are saturated. So if you recall from the previous video, saturated and trans fat would be the less healthy fats. And when you're trying to compare two items, you would look at the label. So this on the left side is a label of butter, and on the right side is a label of a tub margarine. So the same serving size, a tablespoon, is 60 calories here instead of 100. The fat is cut down to just about half at 6 grams, and the saturated fat is 2 grams, much less than half. This label on the right is an older label. Was having difficulty finding a new label for margarine. However, some labels out there are still in this older version, so it might be a good idea just to compare them this way as well. So as you can see, the fat content and obviously calories change when you're looking at two products that are pretty similar in what you use them for, butter and margarine. It just shows the difference, how one may be more suitable for you. The next slide, well, this is where you would look, where the arrows are pointing to total fat, and then you would go to types of fat: saturated, trans, the unsaturated healthier fats. Okay, and I wanted to talk about plate method because fat and calories are a little bit detailed. Looking at labels, sometimes people feel like it's a little overwhelming. So the plate method is an initiative by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that replaced the food guide pyramid. The food guide pyramid, again, some people had trouble making sense of it. So this plate was formed to help patients look at a meal and try to make it balanced, a little bit more simplified with the 5 food groups. So here you would have larger servings of vegetables, fruit on half your side, and then grains, which would include pasta, tortillas, rice, potatoes, things like that. And then protein would be your chicken, fish, or beans. Dairy, they are showing the example of a balanced meal with a glass of milk. I know a lot of people don't do that. However, this would be a completely balanced meal. Balanced meals could include just 3 food groups. So for example, you would have, let's say this half would be all vegetables with some rice and some chicken and water. That would still consist of a balanced meal. So just kind of getting an idea of, I need to put more food groups on my plate so that I don't have too much chicken or too much rice on my plate. So it helps you with portion control without using measuring cups. It helps you balance your meal. It adds fiber to your plate because you're hopefully adding fruits and vegetables there, your plant foods. It adds calcium to meals if you are drinking milk or eating some yogurt. And it limits your meat and grain servings so that they're just not excessive and cause damage in the long run. And here's some examples with real food. In this left-hand picture, it looks like it's chicken breast, green beans, blackberries, and maybe some sort of a rice dish. That looks colorful, it looks inviting, and it's not as as boring as sometimes people think healthy eating is. And I think the middle picture is chicken tacos. It's got avocado there, and it's got more veggies than just on the taco. It's got veggies on the side, and I think that's important because sometimes people will count, the tomato and the cilantro and the onion that's on the taco as the vegetable, but it's not large enough of a serving to count. Here we've got homemade chicken and vegetable soup. This is very common with the Hispanic population, and I feel like it's a good example of a balanced meal all in one plate. It doesn't have to be the divided, colorful plate we saw before, but we've got some starchy vegetables and some root vegetables. We've got some chicken breast, and I believe that is all. Sometimes this is served with rice or tortillas. So now we can, use the restroom if we need to, take a stretch. I know it's hard to listen to someone for so long, but definitely we're moving on to the next section, which would be exercise. So that landmark study had participants do 150 minutes of exercise a week. And what we've seen that also works, it's not just 150 minutes at one time. You can spread it out because, like, most people have to go to work, take care of their children and things like that. 30 minutes a day, most days a week, would make the 150 minutes. The study had the participants do something like fast-paced walking, something possibly, hopefully, different from what they do at work. So if we have a lot of people that already work in housekeeping, for example, maybe you want to hop on a bike for 30 minutes, maybe you want to take your kids to a pool, an indoor pool, something like that. And if 30 minutes at one time is just too difficult for you to fit in, the American Heart Association has found that dividing those 30 minutes further into 3 10-minute segments throughout your day also counts. So when you want to think about exercising, you definitely need to get your doctor's approval first to make sure there's no other medical conditions that would limit your abilities to exercise. In this Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, I think is very suitable here because thinking of exercising, it sounds like a big task. It sounds like something we don't have time for. But again, 10-minute increments, 30-minute increments also counts. You do need to plan this out, meaning, what am I going to do? What's good for me? What is safe for me to do? Again, if you have any medical conditions such as knee problems, back issues, you want to make sure you're not doing anything that you will injure or make your condition worse. Where can I exercise? Do I live in a cold climate? Do I need to find an indoor safe place to exercise? A lot of times people say they don't walk around in their neighborhood because they don't feel safe. So again, where can I exercise? And it might be the best facility out there and you drive there, but how long does it take to go and come back? I live in a big city, so sometimes that's a deterrent. If I'm going to be in traffic for another 30 minutes, I might not want to do it. So again, where can I exercise? Planning is very important. When can I exercise? I know I get that question a lot. It's best based on your schedule. You don't want to do anything that's too difficult that you're not going to be able to maintain. So again, if you start work at 6 a.m., you don't want to promise and say, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. and jog around. Maybe you want to do something, plan something in the evening or at your lunch break. And then the how questions. How will I exercise? How will I find time? How will I feel? So some places to get moving would definitely be starting at your home. I think people get turned off by the thought of exercise because they think that it's going to be too expensive. You don't necessarily need to join a gym if you've got some equipment in your home. If you've got internet access, you can always turn on a video. Again, some sort of activity that's approved by your doctor, but turn on a video and, just do it in your living room, in your bedroom, in your basement, perhaps. Some people are fortunate enough to have a large backyard and live in a warmer climate. Again, that'll work. Or, your neighborhood, your nearby park district. Here in Chicago, we have free parks, free pools, and they're usually pretty close. And if they're not, and you don't drive or don't like to drive, public transportation is very easy in this city and perhaps other large cities. You can walk at your park, jog, take your bike, take your kids, play with your kids at the park. Pool, there's classes for adults, there's family classes, there's Zumba classes, yoga classes, things like that are very low cost at the park district. Again, if you're the type that likes, very official, professional types of equipment, you can definitely join a gym. Look at your nearest gym. How far is it? How much is it? Who's going to go with me, or who's going to take care of the kids if I go? And sometimes even at work could be a good place. If you have a longer lunch period, you might want to take just 10 minutes of that to walk before, walk after, or walk during one of your breaks instead of just, having some coffee. You can take a walking meeting. You can talk with your coworkers while you walk, obviously. Other healthy habits that we don't have time to get into would be sleep. Sleep has been associated, not getting enough sleep has been associated with gaining weight over time. So again, since weight seems to be a factor, overweight seems to be a risk factor for prediabetes, you want to make sure that you've got healthy habits all over to help you prevent diabetes, help you prevent gaining weight. So adequate sleep for adults is something around 7 to 9 hours a night. Stress management. Daily life can bring all kinds of issues, and studies have shown that it's a normal response to stress is for blood sugars to rise, for that person to be prepared to run away and in stressful moments. However, modern life doesn't have stressful moments where you really need to run away. It's more kind of daily pressure, daily routine kind of stress. That, if they're not managed, they can cause issues with your blood sugar and or weight. Another healthy habit is to, I think we said in an earlier slide, to seek out support. If you're thinking of making a serious lifestyle change, it's stopping smoking or eating healthy or exercising, you really need to make sure your environment supports this. And your environment is your family. Who do you live with? Your friends at work, your social life. Are they going to come along with you with this healthy change? And if not, how do I manage that? If you need more information, there's many resources for this, but you want to make sure you go to the right place to get evidence-based information. This study, the National Diabetes Prevention Trial, produced all these programs now that are all over the country. You can go to the website, the CDC website, to find your nearest program. And it's a year-long type of program where you would go to group meetings and you would have different activities to keep you on the right path. You can also schedule an individual appointment with your dietitian. You can search out books at the library. These were a couple of titles that I found at my library that seem to be evidence-based. The diabetes website, diabetes.org, or if you're not internet savvy, you can call them 1-800-DIABETES and they'll mail you information or they'll point you to the right direction. There's also pre-diabetes prevention websites, the Department of Health websites, and I will give you a handout at the end of the seminar so that you can walk away with all this. You don't have to memorize it, and you'll have it all written down for you. I have my references next, and I wanted to thank you for coming, and if you have any questions, I would feel free to answer them, try my best to answer them now, or look for the answers for you. And following, we'll have the balance plate demonstration and the nutrition label examples. And thank you again.